All right, it is Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is brand new music from Stratovarius, a tune called Dragons. And on the phone right now, we've got pretty much half a band. We've got Timo and Jens from Stratovarius. Guys, how are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, nice. We're here in New York City, a little bit hungover.
That's
a party yesterday in a whiskey bar. It was a very, very brilliant idea.
Sure. Well, that's
record in a whiskey bar.
Right. Well,
best idea ever.
Sure. Well, that's the Stratovarius way, isn't it? With a lot of whiskey and a lot of alcohol?
Well, we are trying to cut down, but it used to be worse, but it's still like, let's put it this way, some people like some alcohol, so.
Definitely. Well, guys, obviously, man, brand new record out called Nemesis, or coming out called Nemesis. It's typical Stratovarius type music, but for the first time in a long time, it has a very different feel to it. It feels much darker. It feels much deeper. What changed that made you guys kind of morph the sound into a new direction?
I think it's not on purpose. I think it's how everybody's been feeling when we have been writing. And, of course, from whatever the songs are, you get the general feel of the album. But we haven't really planned anything. I mean, we wrote a bunch of songs, and we recorded about half of them. And what you have in your hand, the result. It's not a big grand plan there, really. But I think you're right. I mean, it is a bit darker, maybe.
Sure. And one of the things that I notice in some of the songs is where on the past you guys were really, really, I don't want to say grand or operatic, but you really used keyboards as a very big piece of the sound. It seems like you guys are almost morphing into a more guitar-centric way. Is that true?
Well, I think the difference is that Matthias has a sort of a, I would say, darker and heavier guitar sound on the new album, and probably that's because he produced and recorded and mixed the whole album himself, which wasn't the case in the past. On Elysium, I think he mixed half of the songs, but this time he wanted to make a bit different guitar sound. And of course, it's also what's different on Nemesis compared to the past albums is that we have a new drummer in the band. And of course, his playing style is affecting the whole music on the album for sure.
Sure. Now, for you guys, especially in the last 10 years, there's always been a lot of controversy around the band. With this release, this seems like the first time when there's really not. It's almost like a normal release for you guys. That all by itself has to feel different, doesn't it?
I think actually since Mario, there hasn't been a lot of controversy with the album, really. We just been keeping on making records. I think this is the important part, that we keep making music. Of course, you can read controversy into anything. To me, it's just we're just a band that sort of woke up from the dead in 2008, and that's of course a bit controversial.
Sure.
But from that point on, we just been making records, and this is the third one with this system. And I don't think it's a very, very strange thing or very controversial thing. We're just getting maybe to know each other a bit better as a band.
Okay. Now, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and with that, I mean, does it? And I guess this one I'll throw to you, Timo. With you guys really growing as a band together, it has kind of the old baggage now and the old way that you used to record and write songs and everything. Is it totally different from the early days of the band?
Well, that was done in 2008.
It is a bit different since until 2008. There was only basically one guy in the band who composed all the music, and nobody else was even allowed to do it. So nowadays we have 4 guys in the band who are composing. So of course that's totally different nowadays.
Sure. And so now when you look back to the old music, I mean, I'm going to make an assumption, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I have to assume then that since you guys are all working together to record this music and to write and compose this music, that you have a much closer feel to it than you do, the old stuff that, basically Tolkien wrote. Is that how it is for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think, of course, everybody feels connected more to the stuff that they wrote. You know, of course, if you write something and it probably has more meaning to you than something that somebody else wrote. But I also have to say, I take issue a little bit with what Timo said before, that we weren't allowed to write. I think we were allowed to write anything, but we just trusted Timo Tolkki to pick the stuff. And I think the system worked until 2004, 2005 or something like that. And then it didn't work anymore, the system. Because, like anybody, I think he prefers to pick stuff that he writes himself. And I think I would have done the same thing if people would have trusted me.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but it wasn't like really he was this dictator or something like that. We all agreed, and it was actually a very good mood in the band when it was working. But I think around 2004 or 2005 or something, I think he just didn't feel like dealing with his responsibility anymore of being the sole songwriter in the band. And then at the same time, he loved this responsibility. So I think the reason he left is actually because he failed to unite these two goals. Like, I don't want to deal with this band, and I want to be complete in power of this band. And it's, of course, very difficult to do both at the same time. That's why it sort of went kaput. But anyway, I think right now we have a different system. Everybody's involved that wants to be involved. And of course, I mean, what's amazing me with the process is that we first of all, we can turn out albums very quickly because we have so many writers. And the second thing, I think, is we don't run out of ideas so easily because we have 4 or 5 guys coming up with stuff. So, every album is going to be a little bit different, and every song is going to be different from each other because they come from 4 different pens.
Okay.
People writing. So I think it's a strength, this new system.
Right.
Controversial or weird or anything. I think it's great.
Right, definitely. Now, one of the things that is different now, and you mentioned it earlier, is how you fully had Matthias produce the record instead of having anybody outside, and so really this is a fully encapsulated project from the band. Why did you decide, or what made you have the confidence in letting Matthias do this instead of reaching out to an outside producer to maybe that would have maybe given you outside perspective and wouldn't have been as close to the music as he wouldn't have been part of the writing process?
Well, I would say that we don't really trust many people outside the band when it comes to producing the album, and also Matthias did mix half of the songs, and he was kind of producing Elusive already. But this time, I think we just wanted to give him a chance to prove that he can do the job, and I'm very happy right now that we did. And I think he's been producing albums before, but not so much power metal albums. But of course now I think he succeeded with this album, so he will probably get more jobs.
Sure, absolutely.
For me, it's like, I don't know what makes us trust him. Like you say, I think it's easier to trust somebody who's in the band because you know him very well. We've been in I think he knows the Stratovarius fans because he's been on the road with us, playing, suffering with us, traveling with us, now for 4 years. Of course, he understands the Stratovarius fans, much better than any external producer would do. And I think the last reason is because he's fucking kick-ass. I mean, he's really talented guy, and I think by now his production skills have grown that I think any band should trust him to produce their stuff. I probably wouldn't have said that in the Polaris days because I didn't really know how much he had recorded and mixed and stuff back then. But now, for sure, I mean, now he's learned a lot with his band as well. So it's cool. Sure, definitely. Now, from listening to the record, I mean, it's clearly what Stratovarius does. It's all about power metal, and it's certainly powerful. But like we said earlier, there are some new influences in it, and the one song that jumped out to me was Out of the Fog, which almost has like a folkish type of a flavor to it. What went on in the writing of that one?
Well, that's the song that me and Jani Liimatainen actually composed together. He used to play in a band called Sonata Arctica, and I've been doing a lot of these acoustic shows within the last years with him. And we also released this Black Acoustic album last year, so that's why we've been kind of composing a lot of lot of stuff, Jani and I. And I had the first idea for the song. I had it already when it was like more than a year ago. But then I had this riff. So I had this main riff for the song already, like I think a year ago, and then it all started when I was in a cabin, and I was like watching how the fog came from the from the lake, and that's how it started. And it was just a demo name, this Out of the Fog, in the beginning, and then but it just stayed there. I couldn't get rid of it, and then I had this idea about the story that it would be like about these young soldiers marching basically to their death, without knowing, if what's going to happen, and when they come out of this fog, and then there's like the enemies there, and then there's a lot of blood. But this fog thing, that's basically Jani's part, because we also met some years ago. We made this album together called Kane's Offering, Jani and I, and some other musicians. So I think it's just his influence on the song.
Sure, definitely. Now, let me ask you kind of a business question for the business of being in a band now. Clearly, sales doesn't seem like it's important. I don't want to say important, but it can't be the focus anymore just because so many people steal the music. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, with that thought in mind, what is it that keeps you guys staying together as a band and creating new music and recording it? Because obviously you put a lot of time and money and effort into doing that, knowing that people are going to, not drop down their $12 or $15 to buy it. So what keeps you guys, focused to keep putting out music at such a high level?
Well, I think you can put it this way. If all of us guys really were interested in making money, this is not what we would have been doing.
Right.
We would have been in fucking finance or working in banks or, stock market, stockbrokers or real estate or something like that. So I think even 20 years ago, musicians have been ripped off. This is not something new that's been happening anew. Now it's more like the fans are actually doing it directly instead of the labels doing it. But I still have the confidence that, if you make, for instance, you make like this physical package attractive enough that people actually would want to buy it, because, of course, when you download stuff, you can only get the audio, really, in a way. You don't get this feeling of having the product in your hand, looking at pictures of how it was made and reading the lyrics in a nice booklet or whatever. So I think it's gonna become more of a package-centric marketplace in a way. But again, I mean, if we would have really wanted to make money, I think we would have been doing something else with our lives. Sure. It's not really because we want to make money that we do this stuff. I think for me, I just want to make enough money that I can keep on making more music, the next record. So I'm happy that we are doing well enough that the label is enabling us to record more. But beyond that, I don't know. I mean, we've been ripped off all our lives. Not so different now.
I agree, and it's also I tend to think that metal fans are more loyal to the bands, compared to some pop music fans. So they're not stupid. They understand that if nobody buys any more albums from metal bands, then there won't be any more metal albums. So it's just basic logic. But also, of course, nowadays the situation, like you said, it has changed quite a lot compared to 15 years ago, when it was still like money-wise also pretty good to make albums, depending how much you sold, of course. But I think it's also, in our case, we are not trying to make the album as cheap as possible, but we actually put a lot of money and time to make this album and to make it sound as good as possible. But then, of course, it's turning a little bit into like promoting the tour, thing. But you never know how it goes. It might be a little bit better. And of course, there are still like these big acts that are actually selling like probably like millions of albums. It never was the case. It was not like this with us. But anyway, but it doesn't look so bad. But of course, it's more like you have to release a good sounding album. Then if you're lucky, then you can do some touring. And of course, this economy isn't so good in the world right now, and there's so many bands touring. So of course, also this live market is very, very tough nowadays. But like Jens said, never started making music because of the money, and we still are doing it because we love making music, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Now you mentioned that about the world and actually touring around the world. Does it? I'm curious, where is it easier to tour financially for you now? Is it easier to tour here in the United States, or is it easier to tour in Europe, which is a little bit smaller, but at the same time has a bit more of a hardcore following for power metal?
In Europe.
Yeah, Europe is, of course, much more easier, and I think it's very, very complicated for a foreign band to come to tour in the US. You have to pay like a hell of a lot of money for working visas, and there's a lot of bureaucracy going on. And of course, like you said, the distances are huge. But we are still hoping that we could do some gigs in the US, maybe after summer. But right now we don't have any concrete plans. We do know that we're going to tour in Europe, and we have plans to go to South America in May.
Okay.
And in a way, it's a pity if we can't play any shows over here, but right now we don't have anything confirmed.
Sure, definitely. Well, guys, the new album is called Nemesis. It is released, I believe, the end of February. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, excellent. So it's out at the end of February, and what am I missing that you want people to know about the new record?
It's fucking great.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I haven't been this excited about any of our past albums since, I don't know, maybe 12 years. So I don't know, it has something that makes me very excited and talkative about the album. But it's a brilliant album, I tell you this.
I was also excited about Polaris because it sort of walked the band up from corpse state, but I like this one better. I think this is like, you can listen to the whole thing and it sounds like an album, It sounds like every song is somehow belongs with other songs, and apparently a lot of you journalists are agreeing with this feeling. So let's see how fans like it. Next step, we release it into the wild and see what the fucking fans are thinking about it. I think it's gonna be good.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, all right, guys. Well, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track. So, what song should we end the interview with off of the record, and maybe tell us a quick story about it?
Well, what would it be? Jens, maybe one of your songs.
Well, because he mentioned this Dragons before, then maybe you pick this Castles in the Air, because that's the other one I wrote on this track list that we have. 7 tracks. Castles in the Air, and it's about life. Very good stuff.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. It is Castles in the Air. It is brand new Stratovarius right here on your Classic Metal Show.